Hey, folks, welcome to Draft Talk on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Thanks for watching again. I'm Alan Saunders. This is Nick Farabaugh of SteelersNow.com, and we're talking about the 2021 NFL Draft, specifically what the Steelers are going to do when their time on the clock happens in 2 weeks in Cleveland. And we've talked already about, if you find some previous episodes on the channel, we'll talk about running backs. We talked about linebacker extensively. We talked tight end yesterday. Today, I think we want to talk about the cornerback position. And I think it's a really underrated area of need for the Steelers entering this offseason. In fact, I'm gonna go with a bold opinion. I think cornerback is the Steelers' top need right now. I don't think there is another position where they have a greater both quantity and quality needs right now. I mean, they need a starter to replace Steven Nelson and or Mike Hilton, whichever, if Cam Sutton's the outside corner or the slot. They need one starter there. Okay, they need a dime player to replace Cam Sutton's role. Maybe that can be James Pierre, maybe not, I don't know. And they need a starter next year because Joe Hayden is going to be a free agent after his contract automatically voids. There's no extending him at this point. So they have three needs at cornerback. There's no other position, I feel, where they come even close to that, and it's a really important position for this defense. Nick, am I totally off base here? I don't feel like enough people are talking about cornerback when it comes to the Steelers.
Well, I do feel like in terms of, I guess, quantity of need, they definitely have the most there. I mean, I don't hate your reasoning for it. I think center's the top need. I think BJ Finney isn't very good at football. And Joe Haig is like the stopgap guy. So like they have no one at center for me, and I don't want my quarterback getting killed by every nose tackle up the middle. So I think center's two, but I think center's two for me. I think then it's tackle because I still don't trust a core four banner. Like I think the tackle situation, at least starting, is an issue, but corner is probably my three. So I don't hate it at all. And I think they were trying to fill that dimebacker role you mentioned with maybe Carl Joseph. They didn't end up signing him, but I do think maybe he was a possible option there. I think corner though is just such a huge need. Now I think they're going to look to the boundary for this corner because I think kind of what we've seen. Most of them, at least Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell, when they were at Georgia Pro Day, are definitely boundary guys. Although Asante Samuel Jr. is an interesting name that we'll talk about, I'm sure. He's not. He's going to be probably a slot guy. So who knows? They're giving themselves flexibility. We talked about JOK the other day. Maybe is that dimebacker slot guy. So he's definitely pertinent to this conversation. But man, they need a corner bad. And that whole Steven Nelson situation, so weird. I don't know why. They created themselves another huge need pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like they have enough cap space that I feel like they could have done something there. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, whether that was, giving Nelson voidable years, which I'm sure he would have agreed to, or signing to an extension. It's not like he's old, and it's not like he was playing at a level that wasn't worth his contract. Now, maybe they couldn't agree on future value, but still, I think you'd have rather done a voidable years thing than just cut a guy who was a really productive starter and open up another big hole on the team. So, I mean, now I made my argument. Okay, this is the most important need. I'm still not sure there's a ton of good fits for them at 24.
Well, who's going to realistically be there, right? So Surtain and Horn are probably off the board. I mean, just the needs at corner up there, like Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Eagles, even the Bears and the Colts, and it's definitely the Titans as well. So we could have 3 or 4 corners off the board before the Steelers even hit the board. But Horn and Surtain, there's like no way they're going to be there, right? And I know the Steelers met with Horn, but it really doesn't matter. Farley is an interesting case. Maybe he's there at 24 with his back issues, but do the Steelers really want to take a chance on him with the back injuries? I don't know. And they weren't at his pro day either, although Terrell Austin was. Greg Newsome is, I think, a phenomenal fit for them. But again, he's a guy they weren't there for. And we just know the reason I keep saying this with pro days is because, man, it's just so I keep hammering this home. If Tomlin and Colbert are not there, you're probably not the pick in the first round. Now they could break that cycle this year. We'll see. So I'm going to mention Greg Newsome because I do like the fit there. I think he could be there, and that's definitely his range, but he could be gone as well. I mean, you probably would agree with this. I think 24 feels a little early for both Eric Stokes and Asante Samuel Jr. I love Asante Samuel Jr., but 24 feels rich for me for him. So if they really want him or Stokes, that again, we've talked about this before. Trade back, like just get out of there, get good value for that, get some other capital, and then pick your guy.
Yeah, and I agree. I think those are probably trade back candidates, and I don't think either of those guys, or maybe even down, the Georgia guys, Aaron Robinson from UCF. I don't know if those guys are there at 55. Like it's not that doesn't seem to be like there's a ton of guys available that sort of fit their mold early or late in the second round either.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, because Robinson, who's probably the second best nickel in the class behind, he might even be the best nickel in the class. It's kind of how you think about him, Samuel, and Elijah Molden. You didn't even mention Elijah Molden. I do think that's an interesting candidate at 55. Elijah Molden out of Washington, he didn't test all that well, so maybe he's there at 55. Very Mike Hilton-like, scrappy in the run game, fluid. He's smaller, but he's a very good cover corner, and he can come down and blitz well. So I think Elijah Molden is probably your best candidate at 55, and he'll slide in from the slot at day one and start. But yeah, I don't see Robinson getting there. Stokes might not get there because he had a phenomenal pro day, and I thought he was already hovering around that late 2 mark. Tyson Campbell does have a chance to be there, I think. Again, had a good pro day, but he's a little green, which is probably not going to like Steelers fans probably won't like that label, that he's a little raw.
Well, if you're looking at that the one part of their corner need, a potential future replacement for Joe Hayden, maybe somebody a little green is okay. I'm not sure they can afford to use the second round pick on addressing that particular need as opposed to, and let's address the elephant in the room. The Steelers have not done a particularly good job of identifying developmental corners or even early corners in the draft. Cam Sutton, really the only guy in the last 5 or 6 years that they've drafted that's turned out to be pretty good at that position. Justin Lane still going to be on the roster, got passed by Pierre for playing time last year. Doesn't look like he's going to be in the mix for either of these two openings at outside corner, either the one this year or the potential one next year with Hayden leaving. So I feel like they've kind of backed themselves into a corner here at corner, huh? See what I did there? And is there another way out of this? I mean, they used free agency to find Nelson and Hayden. Could they come up with a trade? Are there still guys on the market that they can fit in their budget to make this not such a big need going into the draft?
Well, I always suppose there is a way they can do voidable years again. If they want a 1-year deal with, I mean, Richard Sherman's out there still. He is. Now, that's not a name that, I would expect the Steelers to be connected to, but I'm not going to act like the cornerback market is completely bare. For trades, I mean, we haven't heard a lot of corners that are on the market in terms of the trade market. It really feels like they have quite honestly backed themselves into a corner, as you said, tongue in cheek in that area. You just look at the corner market. It's pretty dry. I mean, there's AJ Boye, there's like Casey Hayward, like these are all older guys now, right?
Is Josh Norman still out there?
I think he is. DJ Hayden, Jason McCourty. I think Brian Poole. I'm just looking at the list right now. Brian Poole is an interesting one from the Jets. Could play slot corner from day one. He's only 29. I think that would be a pretty solid signing. Bashad Breeland is still out there as well from the Chiefs. Maybe not your long-term answer, but he's serviceable as well. And, there's a few guys out here. It's not completely bare if they want to do that. And maybe they draft a guy as well. Garyon Conley is out there. I know they had a lot of pre-draft interest in him. I do wonder maybe if they're waiting until after the draft to address some of these needs because they don't want to mess up the compensatory pick formula for that Bud Dupree pick, the Mike Hilton pick, Matt Filer as well. So this could be something that they actually address after the draft as well.
What's some day 3 guys? I saw a mock draft yesterday that had Sean Wade going to the Steelers. He's a really interesting guy to me. There's a couple other players that are kind of in that fourth or fifth round pick. Trey Brown, maybe from Oklahoma. What do you think about those guys? Is there somebody there that you like for the Steelers as a fit?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Sean Wade's definitely right in that area. Some guy we didn't talk about. Wade's interesting because he's this high pedigree guy that kind of fell down the board and he played out. It's because he played outside, but I think people realize he's better in the slot. That's where he'll play the next level. So he's a slot guy. Some guy we haven't mentioned, Trill Williams out of Syracuse, covering the ACC. I'm certain you've seen a good bit of Trill. He's a guy in that Syracuse secondary that has a lot of really good players with Cisco, Melifonwu, Williams. I think Trill Williams was kind of the all do it all chess piece, right? Guy played linebacker, he played safety, he played slot, he played boundary corner. He can do all this. I think that versatility is something we talked about that yesterday with the linebackers. I think it's something they could use in the defensive secondary as well. Trill Williams is an interesting piece. St. Juste out of Minnesota, I think is interesting. He was down at the Senior Bowl. Steelers really had good conversations with him. Apparently, he's long, he's lengthy, he's a boundary guy. I think he could be really nice. Maybe not if he starts from day one. I mean, it's possible. I think if you draft a guy on day 3, you're obviously probably asking one of the young guys to step up and take that outside cornerback job. And kind of St. Juste would be in that convo. I think also Ambry Thomas out of Michigan's an interesting name. Very good athlete. I'm just looking at some guys.
Robert Brown from Michigan State is an interesting guy to me. I think he's a young guy, came out as a junior, but is still going to be a third-day pick. So that's kind of like a weird convergence that the Steelers likes. And he's a slot guy, I think, but certainly a fit. I think the NFL has really changed a lot in the last 5 years. There used to be this perception. It's like, oh, well, he's only a slot corner. That's not that valuable. I think teams are starting to understand that slot guys are pretty darn important. Mike Hilton, clearly just a slot corner, just got paid a lot of money as a free agent.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, another name I do want to throw out there, Robert Rochelle out of Central Arkansas. We've seen the Steelers in past years. They've kind of broken a trend in recent years where they would not even draft a lot of small school guys in past years. Past few years, they've done that. Alex Highsmith, Kevin Dotson just last year, right? Guys like that.
Bunch of MAC guys recently too.
Deontay Johnson. They love their MAC guys. Now Rochelle's an FCS guy from Central Arkansas, but his athleticism is unreal. I mean, he jumped out the gym at his pro day. And he's super fast as well. Very long, lengthy guy. He can play it inside or outside. He's done both. He was phenomenal. I thought on tape at times he has a really high ceiling. He's kind of a developmental guy, but I think he could come in that 128, 140 area and be, maybe not an instant contributor, but as the season goes on, maybe he gets comfortable. He could really be a key piece down the stretch. I'll throw out another name, another guy at the Senior Bowl, Keith Taylor out of Washington. The Washington DBs are always a good place to go. They've had a lot of good guys come out in recent years. The Taylor Rapps, Byron Murphys, the Buda Bakers. Taylor's another outside guy I think that could fit into that mold. So there's a deep talent pool here for the Steelers to choose from in this cornerback class. It goes all the way down to day 3. Marco Wilson out of Florida, DJ Daniel, just naming some guys like that. There's a lot of talent that they can pick from, I think, in this class.
Yeah, and I think another area to look for, maybe, we talked about some slot guys, but if they're going to take an outside guy, I think they might look for some size. Hayden and Sutton, who I assume would be the 2 outside guys if they had to play right now, are both 5'11". Nelson was 5'11". It's been a while since they had an outside corner with some size. St. Juste is 6'2", I think. So that could be an area where, I mean, maybe one of these guys that doesn't run as well, but maybe provide some size that they might be interested in. I think this is a really big need for the Steelers and honestly a crucial aspect of them surviving this offseason. I know they've done a lot of talk about the running game and needing to improve the offensive line, but I think this is right up there with those needs. So I'm really interested to see what happens here and if they're able to get to all these needs in the draft. Like you said, there's some post-draft free agents maybe they'll look to. And this is a place where I think even undrafted guys, there's going to be some talent available. There are a ton of guys in this draft that I think are still going to be around. So that'll be something interesting to watch too. Of course, Mike Hilton was undrafted, so it's not like you can't get good talent down there at this position. Good stuff as always, Nick, and we'll be back tomorrow with a different position. I don't know which one we're going to do. If you've got a strong opinion about what you want to hear me and Nick talk about for the Steelers draft, leave a comment either on the site or on the YouTube platform, and we'll get to it and address it in a future show. Until then, thanks for watching. This has been Draft Talk on Pittsburgh Sports Live. For Nick Farabaugh, I'm Alan Saunders. Make sure to go to SteelersNow.com, check out all the coverage there, and of course, you can find us on YouTube and on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.